Hi, my name is Leandro Facchinetti, and let's write some code together, shall we? What we have on the menu today is part 8 of this series of streams in which I am working on a package that I developed called Kasha. The purpose of this package is to, package your Node.js application into an executable binary that you can just distribute, and people don't have to install Node.js before running your web server or your command line application and so forth. And yesterday what we did was to complete the initial draft, I would like to say, of this feature that is to add ARM support, so ARM architectures on Linux and macOS. They were not supported in Kasha before, and yesterday we finished the work of adding support for that, and then we let off yesterday by pushing a new tag, and I said that we would figure out if the thing worked or not, and of course it didn't. After 6 minutes of running, the thing failed. So today we are going to start by looking at why this failed and try to fix whatever is wrong there, and possibly push a tag or a release with ARM support. But it's still going to be in beta because we talked about this on the first episode of this series. There are more things I want to do before we release 2.0, and these things are breaking changes. So I want to make sure that I do all these other things as well, and then we'll publish 2.0. Okay, so I did not look into this before. I am doing this right here with you on the stream, and let's figure out together what happened. So the build went okay, and there should be two artifacts here. They are the checksums and the stubs because they are generated by the build steps and the checksum step, which also succeeded. But then the tests failed, and I guess that makes sense. I remember something I think we did wrong yesterday, but let's look into the results of these runs and look at the logs and see the error happening. So this is failing on Linux ARM, and this is failing on Windows. And I thought that the run was stopped because of one of the failures, but it appears that no, both failed for different reasons. So let's look at maybe Linux first. So this is setting up the Docker container, which is succeeding, and then the post install is succeeding, which is interesting. I was expecting that part to fail because our post install had this line that we should have switched back, but we didn't. Oh, okay, I understand what's going wrong here. So we forgot to switch these two lines to actually use the version that we are publishing. But that's not a problem because in this specific version we have hard-coded, the stub name is available. So the stub was there. It's just an outdated stub that does not use the separator we want to use. So that will be a problem, but let's see. So the TypeScript compilation also succeeded, and then Prettier succeeded, and then the tests failed. But the tests having failed is expected. As I said, we were using the wrong stub. And then here we have something else. On the Windows run, something else has happened. And cannot create a file when a file already exists. Oh, okay, so the post install script put a stub in place, and then the PowerShell is complaining that you cannot move into a file that would overwrite, essentially. So we have to do some changes there as well. So let's do the whole thing. We are not going to use these releases anymore because they were just for testing. We'll actually use this one. But there is a problem. What happens when we are building the thing? So we are making a new release. In that case, we have updated package.json, so we will be looking for something like 2.0.0 beta 1, for instance. Now, the problem here happens when you are in the process of creating this build in GitHub Actions, and then not in the build part, but on the test part. So for instance, on this part. So npm CI will try to download, because npm CI will run package.json post install. So it will run the post install script, and it will try to install from a release that is not there yet. And this should fail because we have not finished yet putting the binary in the right place in the GitHub releases. So there is this chicken and egg problem of what happens first. So my idea to fix this is, first of all, if the stub is already there, then don't try to download it again. I can show you the behavior right here. I have a stub in my working directory, and when I try to run npm install, it will run the post install script and it will fail because it will not find this stub. Now, the solution I think should be, don't try to install if the stub is already in place. And that makes sense if you think about the way we are doing things here in the build. We are putting the stub in the right place, and then we are running the tests. So we want to run the tests with the latest stub because the stub may have changed. In fact, it did change in this case. So I think that the way this should be handled is, if fs exists sync of, I think we build this stub path later, so I'll move this up. So if this stub path exists, then I want to stop execution, so I'll say process exit 0. And now when I run this install script again, it will run the post install, but it will succeed, except for the typo. So what we are doing here is we only install the stub if the stub is not already in place. And I think this will fix the error I just mentioned on building the GitHub Actions thing, but it also makes sense. If you are working on the stub itself, then you may be compiling the stub locally, and in that case you don't want to override your stub because you ran npm install. We talked about this yesterday, and I was like, okay, that it doesn't really matter if you overwrite the thing, but now I'm taking it back. I think that we should not overwrite the stub. And Kunal Biswa says hi on the chat. Hi, thanks for being here. I hope you enjoy, and if you have any questions about what's going on, then make sure to ask on the chat. And now, yeah, as expected, this npm install succeeded. So let's go over this script again to see if there's anything else we want to change, because we already found two things we wanted to change here. So we will make some things asynchronous, so this async has to be here, and then we build this stub path, which is just where the stub will be in your file system. And then this is the name of, Kunal Biswa says, is this web development? Sort of. I mean, this is a package that allows you to ship, to deploy your web servers in a more convenient manner. And we even have an example of this being used in a web application, but specifically what I'm doing right now is not web development. I'm writing Node.js. It's more like a command line tool, but it's useful for web development. So, I don't know. Okay, so continuing here, the stub parts are the parts of the name that we will download. So we will look at the process platform and the process architecture, and then we want to check if we are on Linux ARM. We also look at the ARM version, which may be ARM version 6 or 7. I want to kind of rewrite this because I find that this includes stuff. It's kind of annoying. I don't know, it's just mostly aesthetics, but since I am here, I'll do this. So process dot, and then this platform, and this is arch, and I'm checking whether they are equal to. And then only then I pushed the stub parts, the ARM version. You are welcome, Kunal. So the stub name is just joining the stub parts, and then the download path is now hard-coded to look at my releases. And then we will we will download and write to the stub path. So effectively what we're doing is just downloading this file. And then we look at the checksums file. If we have a checksums file, then you know what we can do? The rest of this script is checksum verification. So to prevent this extra indentation, we can rewrite it like this. There you go. So if the checksums path does not exist, then I exit because I cannot check. I cannot do the checksum. I cannot check the checksum because the file isn't there. So if it's not the case that the checksums exist, then I exit. Then continuing, I read the checksums file, I compute the checksum of the stub I have just downloaded, and then I will check the checksum by saying that this line should appear in the checksums file. And then if it does not appear, then I say that the checksum verification failed, and I exit with an error code. So now let's run this again by saying npm install. This should skip trying to download anything and succeed, which it does. And then I would like to force the download of this stub. To do that, I think I will need to revert all my changes and use the temporary directory, the temporary GitHub release we were looking at before. So I would have to change this back, and I would have to also change the version. We are looking at the version on package.json, so we are looking at that guy. We would have to change that version as well. All these things that I don't want to do just to test. So I will assume that everything I did will work correctly and continue from there. Now let's look at the GitHub workflow, the GitHub Actions configuration, to check that everything is correct and fix some of the issues, like fix this issue. So on the build parts, I don't think we have to change anything. We are just calling go and building the stub the right way, and then putting everything in the GitHub Actions assets. So the build of all these three parts, the Intel 64, Darwin ARM, and Linux ARM, I think we don't change anything here. Now for testing, we want to change some things. So what we want to do is to first move the stub to the right place, and then we can npm install, which will run the post install script, but that's fine because the post install script will notice that the stub file is already there and it won't do any extra work. So we can say npm install ci test, which will do everything in one pass. By the way, since I am doing this, I think I will change the styles of some of the ways we are writing these things here. So for one thing, I know that we have a runner variable. Yes, and I think that this variable, I was just thinking about this off stream, but I think that the runner variable should be called runs on. And I think we mentioned this on the stream and there was some reason not to do it, but I think it's fine if we do it. So I will rename this since we are here in this file. And I will also check every occurrence of run, because if there is a single command, then I don't want to run with multiple lines like this. So I think there is an instance of this happening somewhere. Well, apparently there isn't. So, okay, whatever. So, okay, let's go over everything again. So we are here on the build, and yeah, okay, I think it makes sense to have these two separate instances of run. Oh, and I guess here is my instance of a run with a single line that I would like to change the style of. Okay, so I'll try this search again, because apparently I missed something in the first search. Let's go over everything again. So there is a single command here and here. Here there are multiple commands, but here there is a single one. So I think it makes sense to put it like this. And then here there are two commands, but really they're just moving the stub in place and running npm install. So I think it makes sense for us to do it like this. Or maybe not. Something like this looks better. So we're moving the stub to the right place and then npm install CI test. Now here we have multiple lines, and here we have a single line. That's fine. Here we have a single line, and here we have a single line, but this one is wrong. We actually have to come back to this. So I will copy the command here. Okay. And this is downloading the checksums file. Yes, it is. And in fact, I don't think we checked this when we ran these actions in our previous stream when we succeeded. So it was last Friday. I will go to the successful run and look at the output. So this run succeeded, but it wasn't a tag. So let's go back. And this one succeeded and it was a tag. So this one has all the output we want. And I guess we want to look at specifically the npm publish step, which will have the find dot, which will list all the files. So we expect to see here the checksums file. And this is a long output. So I'll search for checksums txt. So the file is there, and I suppose it will be published when we say npm publish. So yeah, that's the part I wanted to make sure that this checksums file was there. Also, I think it's worth looking at the result of the tests. Yeah, I think we looked at this in the stream, but since I was here, I wanted to make sure that this test passed. And it was a simple test that would only look at whether the stub was in place or not. So, okay, coming back to the top, and let's review everything we have here in this configuration file. So the build is all fine, and then the test will move the stub to the right place and run npm install CI test, and then the test on Linux should do something similar. So it's running on Docker, so it will move. I guess we can move before we run the Docker container. So we can move outside the Docker container, which I guess makes more sense. So it will be move effectively this line really. And then the cute thing about doing this is that we can say npm CI install CI test. And I like the parallel between the test on Intel 64, which is the, just move the stub to the right location and then run npm install CI test. Here on the test for ARM, we do we move the stub to the right place, the same way we did it here, and then we run the tests, which in this case is not just npm install ci test, but it's actually docker run, and then a bunch of things, but then eventually it says just npm install ci test. So it's running the same command, but in the Docker container. And we don't have a test for macOS ARM, the new M1 processors. We don't have a test for that. So this is running all the tests fine. And okay, so let's review all these changes. So I changed the runs on. I changed this to be in a single line. And also there is this parallel between build Linux ARM and build Intel. So the line here is more or less the same. And let's review everything. Yep, we moved that line up, and I guess since everywhere else we had 2 lines for these sorts of things, we'll have 2 lines here as well. So anywhere we are using and is because we need, oh, actually we don't need it in these instances. So yeah, let's make things more consistent. Let's look for the and here we can say in multiple lines, which I guess makes things easier to read. So it says run the Go compiler and then echo the separator. And similarly here, run the Go compiler and then put the separator in place. And unfortunately here on these lines, I think it would be harder to do. No, not really. So on the build Linux ARM, we can do this line, which is effectively the same as the other ones, except that it's running in the Docker container. So it has all this preamble, but eventually it gets there running the Docker container, running everything in the Docker container. And then we can do this to echo the separator. And we don't need to do this part in the Docker container. So we are now only doing the thing that we really need to do in the Docker container. And then everything else I think is okay. So there are no other occurrences of and anymore. Okay, so I'll briefly look at everything we changed, just to make sure that everything makes sense. And I'm happy with what I see, so I will commit this. And now I think it's time for us to try another release. So I'll say npm version pre-release, I think is the name, and then pre-id beta. And then it should say version 2.0.0 beta 1. Okay, so let's look at why this should work while it's running. So we'll say git push origin version 2.0.0 beta 1. So this will start the run on GitHub, and meanwhile it should fix some things. It should fix the Windows error, because here on the test for Intel 64, we are moving the stub first, and then we npm install ci test. This is necessary. It's necessary to do this in this order so that Windows doesn't try to overwrite the stub, because the stub will not be there, and the post install script that we run here will look and see, oh, there is already a stub there, so it will not try to download. And that download we know would fail because we have not made the release yet. So I think all this makes sense. And now the GitHub Actions is running on my repository, and we can look at the run. And there is already a failure here on build Linux ARM. So let's look at what went wrong. Oh, so there is a permission problem when trying to it's probably when trying to put the separator in place when we are echoing, and there is a permission problem because the file probably belongs to root, but outside the Docker container we are not root. Probably that is the problem. Yeah, that's probably the issue here. I'm going to guess that this is the issue. And I'll look at all the Docker run instances. So there should be 2 Docker run instances. And I suppose that this is the offending line, the line where we don't have permission to write to this file. We could try to sudo, but I guess that's pointless at this point. I think it makes more sense for us to do this, coming back to the end solution. And similarly for in this case we don't actually need to move this line into here because there will be no permission problems. We'll be going from outside into the Docker container, so that should be fine. Okay, so yeah, that's unfortunate, but I'll deal. So I'll create another one of these releases. And not beta 1, it's beta 2, the one we are interested in. So yeah, now GitHub picked this up and it will take its time to actually run this. But meanwhile, there is something else that I want to work on. And that is the situation of running the tests in ARM. I think that running the tests in ARM will be super slow because it will try to compile from scratch things like SQLite, and we have some tests here that include packages like sharp and so forth. So sharp and SQLite, I'm sure we have. Yeah, so we have SQLite here. So compiling this from scratch on ARM will be super slow, and we probably don't want to do this when testing on GitHub Actions. So we'll see if this is slow, but I already know of a solution. We talked about this last week, and the solution is to come here to the tests and only run the tests under certain conditions, which is something we already do actually. So for instance, here we only run this test if we are in Darwin. And similarly, I think that we need to be more selective when running this native modules test. We need to look at the architecture, and if it is ARM, then we probably want to skip this test. But we'll see. We can see how long these builds or these tests are going to take. And by the way, I think we fixed the issue because the issue was on build Linux ARM. That was the issue on the previous run. Not on this one. On this one. So the issue was in build Linux ARM, and we are already over build Linux ARM. So we fixed the issue, the permission error, by appending the separator within the Docker container. In any case, so I think that this will take a super long time to run. And I can also try to run it on my machine. I wonder if it's worth doing that. I don't think it is. We just look at the output here on the GitHub Actions and see if it takes a super long time, or probably it's going to fail because we have a timeout on the tests of 300,000 milliseconds. So 300,000 milliseconds is 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, I think this will fail. So I think what's going to happen is it will try to run for 5 minutes, time out, and we'll see an error here on this build. It already failed somewhere else, so there is that. Okay, so there are permission problems, I think. And this is the test on Intel. So this should definitely work. This is the only test that we really want to run, absolutely. I mean, if we aren't able to run the tests on ARM, that's acceptable. We don't even have a setup to run tests on M1 processors. That's acceptable. But these tests need to pass. So let's double check what this means. And it means permission denied. So why would this be denied? I really have no idea. And this is not the only test that is failing, so all of them are failing because of permission denied problems. I wonder if this has to do with the stub permissions. How are we building the stubs for Intel again? We are not using Docker, so that should not be the problem, because there is no root shenanigans going on here. Okay, let's just run the tests on my machine real quick. Maybe we can reproduce the problem locally. And if we cannot reproduce the problem locally, we may just push this problem to the future, because there are other things I want to change that may fix this accidentally, or may not fix it. I don't know. But to be specific, since we are waiting for the thing to run anyway, the thing that I want to change is these paths to where we extract the application. So the way that Kasha works, if you're not familiar, is that it is a self-extracting executable. So when you run a binary compiled by Kasha, it will extract your application into a temporary directory. And I want to change the paths to this temporary directory. So the tests are passing on my machine. It really is a problem with this infrastructure. And it's also, now we have an output of the test ARM. And I want to see a timeout here, but no, it fails with the same problem, with access problems. Your cache folders contains root-owned file due to a bug in previous versions of npm, which has since been addressed. Okay, that is interesting, because I don't know of any cache. Oh, but this root npm directory may be in the Docker container to begin with. Okay, that's annoying. And to permanently fix this problem, run that, which will change the permissions or the owner. I don't even know if it's going to change the owner. Yeah, and then there are all these same issues of access. I don't know exactly what's going on there. We can try to debug this, but it's hard because we don't have access to GitHub Actions in the middle of the run, and we cannot debug there. I guess we can try to run in a Docker container on my machine, and maybe that will cause the issue to happen. But you know what? I think I'm just going to push through. So what if we don't work on this issue now. We work on these other things like changing the temporary directories and whatnot. Maybe the issue will fix itself because we are putting the binaries in the temporary directory. So it complains about this temporary directory thing. So maybe if we just push through and change the temporary directories, the issue will fix itself. I guess that's what I'm gonna do. So let's look at the 3 places where we consider temporary directories, and I will do the changes that I think are necessary or that I just think are beneficial. The goal is to have a single temporary directory, and in that temporary directory there will be specific subdirectories. Like there will be this temporary directory called Kasha, and in there will be a builds, a runs, and a tests directory. So in the builds directory, we will put your application when building. The runs will put your application when executing a binary compiled by Kasha, and in the tests, we'll put the binaries produced by the tests, and there will be a single temporary directory. So let's look at this. So this is the F directory, and I guess we can look at all the occurrences of temp0, which this is the only one. So here we'll have a builds directory. And then the identifier, which is your F name, and then a random string. Here on the tests, let's look for all occurrences of temp0. In the tests directory, there is an occurrence, and in the apps directory, there is another occurrence. So I guess now the thing that I'm doing is effectively to introduce a Kasha directory, which is similar to this, but different, because the Kasha directory is just that. And then the tests directory will be the Kasha directory along with tests. And I will not have a random string at the end of this. I don't need a random string at the end of this because before I run the tests, I will delete, and this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this. I'm going to wipe clean the whole directory structure for Kasha and start from scratch. So when you're running the tests, if you have many builds, if you are running many applications developed with Kasha or packaged with Kasha, they will all go away. I'm wiping clean slate. I think that's the proper way of running the tests. And it appears that I am not using crypto random string anymore, so I'll remove that. So yeah, Kasha directory is that. And then there is the tests directory and the apps directory, and the apps directory will be where what is the apps directory now? Okay, so that will be the runs directories or whatever. And that will be here in the Go program that unpacks the tarball. It will unpack that into a temporary directory. So here there is this temporary directory situation, and here we'll put a runs thing. And I wonder if I can do this slash and if it will work the same way that it works in Node.js, or whether I should do it like this. I don't know. I think I'll try this maybe on, I think there is a way for me to try Golang code. Yeah, so I can import OS and I also need to import path join. I actually don't need to import OS. I do need to import path. So I'll import both format as well as path. And this will print path join of hello world, and then run. Expected semicolon, found path. Okay, hello / world. And then what if I do hello / world / by? Okay, that concatenates everything correctly. What if I use a backslash instead? It puts a backslash in there. Okay. Now, the real question is, what happens on Windows? Will this be turned into a backslash on Windows? Will it matter? I think I will leave this for the tests. If the tests pass later, then it works on Windows. I also have a Windows machine which I can try this, but yeah, I don't want to do that right now. So let's just suppose that this works. I can also look at the docs for this. So joins any number of path elements into a single path, separating them with slashes. Empty elements are ignored. The result is cleaned. However, if the argument list is empty, or if all its elements are empty, join returns an empty string. And the result is cleaned, they say. So what does it mean for path clean to occur? Clean returns the shortest path name equivalent to a path by purely lexical processing. It applies the following rules iteratively until no further processing can be done. Replace multiple slashes with a single slash, blah, blah, blah. So it seems like this does whatever treatment we need to be done here with the slash. So I think this should be fine. I would like to see some examples of go path join to see what people do. Yeah, so in the Go documentation, they are using a slash, so I will use a slash as well, which it matches nicely with the path join available in Node.js. I like that symmetry. And because I changed the stub, I will need to npm run build stub to get a new binary to work with. And now I can run my tests. So, before I do that, let's continue here because there is still some work to do. So, the Kasha directory, the tests directory, and the apps directory. Why do I need the apps directory? I need the apps directory because I'm building this app directory. And how do I use that? Okay, so I'm doing some checking of something that I want to get rid of, actually. So we probably want to change the way these tests read. Previously, when you were to build an application, Kasha would put your application into a temporary directory, which happened to be the same directory where Kasha would put your application when decompressing the binary, which I thought was a cute symmetry. The problem with that is that we want to fix some issues with atomic unpacking of packages. So if you are unpacking a package and then something happens in the middle, maybe the power goes off or whatever, you end up in this inconsistent state. And we want to fix that. So I think that while fixing it, I think we should get rid of this skewed symmetry and we should have explicit directories for build and run. That's what we just changed right now. So I think we want to change the tests. The tests we're testing for this caching of sorts, and I don't want to test for that anymore. So I think this will simplify the tests a whole lot as well, which is beneficial. So let's look at what we have. So we have the Kasha directory, and we use the Kasha directory to remove everything, and I think that's good. And then there is the tests directory, where we will put the binaries produced by Kasha. So I want to keep that, but the apps directory I want to get rid of. So I guess we can just get rid of this, and then everything else will fail and we'll fix everything. So the tests directory, we do this ensure thing to ensure that the tests directory exists, but I think that Kasha already does some ensure of the output. So if you call Kasha on the command line and you say Kasha whatever whatever, and you want the output to be like temporary directory or whatever, and then A, B, C, D, E, Kasha will create this directory structure for you. So because of this, I don't think we need to ensure the tests directory to begin with. I think that we can do that. And I really like this simplicity. We are getting rid of a lot of the magic and the caching that goes on. So this app directory, I really don't care about anymore. I do care about the output file. So I don't care about the app directory anymore. I do care about the output file, which is in the tests directory. So this will be the output file, and I will not have anything cached. So I'll just run this once, and then I don't need to run and rerun and blah, blah, blah. On the first run, it will unpack into the runs directory. Yeah, I like the way this reads. It reads like run Kasha to package and then run the tests. Or run the application, really. That's what it's doing. It's running the application, and it's running the application without any cache because it will go into the runs directory that we just put in the Go stub. So that's good. Now here we have the output is a .app thing. And here we are not testing for caching and whatnot, because there is no caching, because there is no unpacking, because this is a different kind of operation, a different mode of operation that we haven't really discussed in the stream, but you can build a .app with Kasha, which is sort of neat. And a .app is really just a directory with a certain structure. So Kasha is able to build a directory with this structure, and it contains your application. There is no need to unpack anything, so we don't need to change this test. And it's not even using the apps directory anymore, so that's fine. Now native modules. We don't care about the app directory. We npm install in the examples directory, and then we build, and then this is not going to be cached, and I don't need to rerun a lot of things. And there is this other program. I can get rid of the app directory here. There is no cache, and we don't need all these lines. So first of all, let's look at the state of our current working, our current temporary directory. How do I find this? I think there is a way for me to just call. I think there is a way for me to require something. Oh, that gets annoying. I'll just call node here, and I will say OS equals require OS. Then OS temp to dir. Is that how? Is that the name? Yeah, tmp dir. This is our temporary directory. Let's list Kasha in there. There is some stuff, and there is also a Kasha tests directory. So let's get rid of. Let's go into that directory, list everything that is in there, and there are many things. Okay, so there is Kasha, Kasha examples, and Kasha tests. We will remove Kasha star, and now there is nothing related to Kasha anymore. So with that, oh, I just moved out, just removed the shell that was in the directory. So let me go back there. Okay, nothing related to Kasha in this directory. Fine. So now we run the tests. Which takes a while. But then we can also open the Kasha directory, which at this point should exist. And we do see a builds and a tests and a runs. Awesome. In the builds, we see command line, echo command line parameters and that, and the other one. And then in runs, we see that, which is fine. And then in tests, we see this, which are literally the executables we are producing. Okay, I like this structure better. And then the tests are still running. But when they are finished running, I will keep this Finder window open and rerun the tests to see this directory being wiped clean and recreated. So here we have the tests have passed, Kasha is here, and I will move this to the side and rerun the tests, and we'll see this directory going away and then coming back. Oh, and the Kasha examples is still here, so maybe there is something that says -examples somewhere in my... Okay, so there is something here in the index JS. Okay, but that's outdated. I can remove the whole lib directory, in fact, and do this search. Oh, okay. So maybe in one of my examples, I create these Kasha examples native modules. So I guess I will put this here as well in the directory like that. So I just changed the example to not produce the Kasha examples folder. It will produce a folder in here. But that does not mean that our change wasn't successful. Our change was successful. So let's run the tests again, and we'll see the Kasha directory going away. And there it goes away, and then it comes back, and we expect to see builds, tests, runs, and examples all in here. And it's going to take a while for all of these to appear. But I think that this restructuring of the directory makes sense. While it's running, I'm going to reveal these changes and commit. So I changed this. That is fine. And then this are all the changes we made to the directory structure, which allowed us to delete many lines, and I'm happy by deleting lines. Here we changed the path, and here we changed the path as well. So our build is, our tests are still running, but I already see all the directories, including the examples here. Awesome. So I like this restructuring. I think it will make things easier later when we try to fix the concurrency problem. I wonder if this had any impact on the access error we are having. I don't think it has any impact. We are just shuffling directories around. But it doesn't hurt to try again. So I will. And I won't even bother looking at the output now, because I am pretty sure that it will fail in pretty much the same way. But with that, we can come here to the to-do list, which is in a different branch, but never mind that. In fact, I'm going to look at the Git Graph and maybe clean things up just a bit. So I have a bunch of tags, and this is the branch that we were working on last week. And there is a whole lot of things here, but the to-do branch has only one commit that is not in master, and this commit is putting some comments here, and these comments have to do with getting the name of the architecture. We already solved this problem, and this has to do with running Docker. We already solved that problem as well. Then in package.json, this has to do with how we build stuff, and then the post install script. So we already solved all these issues. And then there is the to-do file. Let's look at what is in the to-do file from last week. So here we have some things for cross-compilation. We already solved this problem. Here are some things that have to do with running Docker to build. We have solved that problem as well. And these are manual tests for the stubs we have. We don't need that. And we don't need cross-compilation. So we can get rid of all this. And compiling for ARM is sort of a solved problem. So we have that. And then there are only these three to-dos. And we'll move these over somewhere else. So xdd hash, is that how you say your name? Says hello. Hi. Thanks for being here. I think that you're like jumping in the middle of episode 8. So if you have any questions to catch up, feel free to ask the questions. So we'll copy this to-dos into a temporary buffer, and we will move back. So I guess I can cancel this, go back here, discard these changes, go back to the master branch, and then git branch delete the to-do branch. And then I will put, you know what? I kind of already have a to-do file in my desktop from another episode, because there is this thing we want to extract from our GitHub Actions configuration into our dependency. So we already have a to-do file here. I'll just put all these to-dos there as well. So we sort of figured the ARM compilation situation. There are still some bugs with the tests running. I'm sure that the build here on GitHub Actions failed with exactly the same error, but we can double check. Yeah, it failed. And it failed with the same error. So we'll figure this out, but I want to move on to more interesting things and work on the commander parsing, which is a separate issue altogether. We'll just work on this separate thing. We'll start by maybe writing a test for the problem. So it has to do with the parsing of command line parameters. So I guess I'll put my test here. And for now, I want this to be the only test that runs, so that the tests run relatively faster. And while it's running the tests, and it should only run this test, and it should be relatively faster, but while it's doing that, let's talk about the issue. The issue here is, if you pass some command line arguments when calling Kasha, so this is calling Kasha, we expect the directory command and the command, and then the output. But if your command includes something like a flag that's part of the command, this will be attached to our call to Kasha. It will not be attached to the command. That is the issue. And to test this out, I think that I don't necessarily want to run my tests every time. Instead, what I will do is I will call Kasha from the command line, which is easy to do. All we have to do is more or less these lines, but we can also npx ts node source, which will call Kasha, and we can say --help, which will output an example command that we can run. So here we will just copy this, and then we will add a flag that's part of the command. And this will error, it will complain. So now we need to change the way that we are parsing these command line arguments. And there are many ways to do this. Some people in the issue, I think the person who reported the issue suggested that we move away from Commander and use something else that fixes this problem and allows you to have a flag as part of an argument to another flag, which is kind of confusing, but I think it would be nicer if we continue to use Commander but change the format of the command, which is a breaking change, and that's why I'm bumping Kasha to 2.0, among other reasons probably. So let's look at the commands in required option. Okay, I think I know how to do this. So here we have the parsing of the commands. And we have the command that we no longer want. What I would like to do instead is have maybe an input and output, and then dash dash, and then everything else. So it works like a rest command, everything else command. So I think that's what we are gonna do. But now we need to figure how do we parse this rest thing. Okay, I think we nailed. I think it's this one. So variadic option, a special argument, blah blah, stops option processing entirely. If a value is specified in the same argument as the option, then no further values are read. What? If a value is specified in the same argument as the option, then no further values are read? This makes very little sense to me. But in any case, we are looking at operand. Oh, for more information about possibly ambiguous cases, that's exactly our issue. It's the ambiguity that happens here. So see options taking varying arguments. Let's see, options taking variable number of arguments. Some special cases, parsing ambiguity. And then the solution is to use an explicit dash dash. Alternative, make dash dash part of your syntax. I'm not leaning towards this because this is an edge case, and in most cases it will just work. So yeah. Use options instead of command arguments. Okay, a lot of things that can go wrong, but I think that this solution of just using the dash dash is good enough. So we will have, I think, options and then opts, and we can also have arguments, and I think that's what we will have. So we'll have some arguments. Besides the options, we'll have arguments. And while we are doing this, I think I want to change a bunch of things here. So let's see. So we have some of the tests, and okay, that's fine, but I do want to change a lot of things. So this directory is not a directory, it's the input. So we already have an output. Why don't we have an input too? So we'll do that. So this dash D appears in only this location, so it will be dash I for input, and dash dash directory will turn to dash dash input, and then directory like this, it's the only occurrence. it will be turned into input. The input directory to package. I'll move this down because it's no longer a required option. It will no longer be a required option in the near future. So let's see. Input, the input directory to package. Output, the path at which to produce the executable. Overwrites existing files and folders. On Windows must end in .exe. On macOS may end in .app to generate a macOS application bundle. And now this command will no longer be a command, it will be an argument. So arguments. And then it will read like this. And here we need to document this somehow. So let's look in the documentation for some way to document this. Arguments, description, I think that's our guy. So we already have a description, I suppose. We definitely don't want this part, so I'll take out this part so that everything is still that everything is not erroring, at least. And I'll copy this in a temporary buffer so I don't lose it. So we have required options, and then we have version. I wonder how that reads. So let's go again to the --help version. And I wonder where the version will be printed. It's not even printed, it appears. Okay, so as long as it's not printed, I'm fine. So version, and then the arguments, and then description, and then the action. So here we have some options in the middle, but then we have the arguments. Version, I guess the version could be the first one to match the documentation. And then required options, and then the arguments, and then add helper text, and then the action. So we don't have a description. Let's add a description. And in the description, I'll just say hello to see where this appears in the output. Right in the beginning. So options, and then command and arguments. Okay. And then the options, input and output and help. These are required options, really. But there is no documentation saying that they are required. That's unfortunate, but that's okay. So I guess I'll just put another part here that is an object, and here the key is probably this, and the value will be probably that. But we will read this over to make sure. Now let's see how this prints. Arguments, command, and okay. So it's kind of reversed in the order that I would like to see it. I would like to see the options first and the arguments later, but I'm okay with that. And then the hello part, can we just not provide it? No. Can we provide an empty string? Can we provide undefined? Can we provide an empty string? Okay, we can provide an empty string. Do we want to provide any description? Maybe. Let's look at the package.json. Package Node.js applications into executable binaries. Fair, that's a description. And let's see how this reads. Package Node.js applications into executable binaries. The arguments are this, and then command and arguments. The command to run and option arguments to pass to the command every time the executable is called. Paths must be absolute. The cache placeholder is substituted for the folder from which the package runs. The node executable is available at blah blah blah. Use double quotes to delimit the command and each argument. And then we need to change the examples. So we'll now say input and output. That is all okay. But the command part goes away. And instead, it goes at the end. Okay, input, output, and then all the arguments. And I guess I'll put the dash dash here, though it's not ambiguous anymore. Yeah, it's not ambiguous anymore. I will not put the dash dash, but I will put here a flag that's part of the command. I will put that in the example. In the examples, there are multiple examples, so I think that is okay. I think that, let's see how this reads on the page. I mean, pretty much the same. Okay, so now let's look at the action thing. So directory is no longer directory. It is now input. Command, I don't think we'll read this way. Let's see how this works. So the arguments are here, and then the action receives the arguments positionally. So I think that this will be like, where is it? Right here. We will receive the command by position like so, and this will be a string array. And command will not be part of this. And then here we'll change this to be input, output, and command. Let's see how this reads. So your arguments come first, I think. And then your options come later in a map with the names that match the name over there. So yeah, I think that this is by position, and then this is actually called command and arguments. So I think I will call this command and arguments as well. Command and arguments. And here I will call this command and arguments. I will change the way that Kasha, the API for Kasha works. Okay, so I think I like this parallel. But of course, this is far from working because we need to change a bunch of things here in Kasha as well. And we have sort of like 15 minutes to do that, which is probably enough. So directory turns into input. I wonder if there is already input somewhere. No. And here, directory turns into input. And then we reorder this to be input, output, and command will change to command and arguments. Like so. And with that, I think that everything is compiling again. And this should work, but let's take this a step further because we also have this command and arguments in Go. So let's change that in Go as well. So now every occurrence of command is called command and arguments. That's good. So now let's go to the Go code base and look for command. I'll probably have to rename a bunch of things, but yeah, okay, command and arguments, and I will rename this to command and arguments. And now we want to call this expanded command and arguments. I'm not too sure that I like this refactoring. Maybe I'll take it back. Yeah, I think I'll take it back. I think I will go back to just having this being called command. Yeah, I think it will simplify a lot of things. So yeah, I'll take back all the changes from here, and I'll just go to everywhere where I see command and arguments. I will call this command instead. So now let's check that I did not miss anything in the go part. I did not. And now let's see if what this looks like here. So instead of calling this command and arguments, I'll call this just the command. Now let's see how the help looks. Okay, command, the command to run, and optional arguments to pass to the command every time the executable is called, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that looks good. This looks okay. I did all the changes, all the renamings and everything. So now we should be able to npx tsnode source, which will run Kasha, and then here we will say everything that is in the example. And let's check that we don't have an output here. We don't. So this will produce an echo command line parameters, including a flag. Oh no, that is so unfortunate. Oh, okay, so I guess what I need is just a dash dash. I should probably make this faster. Okay, here we are. Okay, it's taking a while, which probably means success. Now let's run echo command line parameters, and there will be an embedded a flag. Awesome. Okay, so our examples need the dash dash, output blah, and then dash dash. Also, our test will need the dash dash. So let's change. All our tests are now wrong. They are still using dash dash directory. So I'll change all occurrences of dash dash directory to be dash dash input. And then the command, I will change every occurrence of command to be just dash dash. And then I will need to reorder some things. I will need to put the output right after the input in every case. So let's look for dash dash output and do a similar refactoring. Now let's run the tests. This should be fine. Oh, I don't think it will be fine because I didn't change the expected output. So let's look at the expected output here. Some embedded arguments, a flag that is part of the command. In fact, the way I'm going to do this is by doing that, and then npm test and update the snapshots using jest. Okay. So this will put the output here, and we can look at it and see if it is what we want to see, if it includes a flag that's part of the command. Okay, the test has passed, and then it just includes a flag that's part of the command. You know what? I'm going to change every occurrence of flag to not a flag, but not a flag, but what is the language used here? Option. Okay, so say that this is an option, and we do that both in the source as well as in the tests. An option that's part of the command. Okay, I'll run the tests again, and I expect this to pass, and then I will commit and maybe wrap this up. Okay, I will commit, but before I do, I want to run all the tests eventually at some point. I can delete this binary, I can look at the source, and I changed the order and the names of things. I included a test of the command line argument being passed here, and then here I renamed and reordered, renamed and reordered, renamed and reordered. Now what are the changes on the source? A bunch of renamings. And just to make sure that the help is fine, I want to make sure that the documentation is mentioning the command. It is. And then there is the command here. Okay, I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm absolutely happy with this commit. But in this case, usually I commit with an empty space, but in this case I actually have a commit message that I want to include, which is this. So yeah, it closes number 5. Cool stuff. Let's go back to our to-do file. So fix commander parsing, we did that. And yeah, okay. We'll wrap this up now. What are we going to do next? Probably we will have to spend some time looking into these failures and try to determine what is going on, why the permission is incorrect. Yeah, so oh, I think I know. No. I was gonna say that the problem is that the file was not executable. Yeah, that could be the issue. You know what? Let's just do this right now because I think it will only take a couple seconds. What is the permissions here on the stub? It's executable, and that's because we built the stub here on our machine for testing. But what if? So let's try to reproduce the problem on GitHub Actions real quick because I think I nailed what the problem is. So let's write a quick throwaway script. We'll call this, I don't know, a.js. In a.js, we will import exec a. So we will say const exec a equals require exec a. And then we'll have an async block. I'm trying to reproduce as closely as possible the situation that happens when running the test. So what happens if you just run the stub? Or really, rather, we have the echo command line stuff. No, I cut away with that. Okay, so I'll compile this real quick again, and we'll have the echo command line parameters on the command line. And then we can say await exec a of echo of this path. Now let's run a.js. And it complains, oh, there is no such file. That's weird. The file is right here. What's going on? Am I missing something in the execution? Am I calling exec A wrong? No? What is the output of pwd? That works. Can I console log? I think that's how I say that. I can go to the tests to double check. Exec A, and then I need to say all. That fails. That is weird. How is that failing? Oh, I guess I need parentheses around this. Okay, so I am in the current working directory and I should be able to call echo command line parameters. Oh, I think I need the full path for this. Okay, so I'll const path equals require path, and then here I will path expand. Is that how it's called? Or resolve? Oh, come on, give me some auto-completion here. Resolve. Yeah, it's called resolve. I think I closed the wrong file, whatever. I'll have to path. Okay, yeah, I closed without saving the wrong file. So I'll have to say here again path, and then we'll say path.resolve of that. Okay, so that is running. But what happens if I chmod? So let's look at the permissions of this file first of all. The permissions of this file include the executable flag. Now let's chmod -x echo command line parameters, which removes that flag of executable, and I cannot execute this anymore. So if I try to, it complains with permission denied. And if I run this through exec A, we ran into that error. Nailed it. I was able to reproduce the problem. I think I know what the problem is. When we are... So this problem is twofold. When we download the file and also when we... Well, essentially when we download the file, but we download the file in two places. So if we are here on this command, where is it? Yes, here on the post install, after downloading, or when writing the file actually, I guess I can pass a flag, right? I will go to the documentation for write file real quick. The problem is that the file doesn't have the executable flag enabled. So we'll do that real quick. I will push this and then I'll talk about what we'll do tomorrow. So yeah, let's get into this. Node.js, API docs, file system, and then write file. And what are the options? Encoding. Is that what I'm using? I'm using write file. An object and string encoding. Let's look at these flags. Default write. Oh, so this is the mode in which I am accessing the file. But what I want is the mode. Sets the file mode, permission, and sticky bits. Defaults to blah. But that's not what I want. So what I will have instead is well, I guess whatever the stub has. So here is 7, and then this is 455. So it's 755. And I think that nails this. Yeah. I think this will put the right flag in the right place. Yep. I think we have something similar to this here somewhere. Oh, this is a flag to append. Oh, this should not be flag. It should be mode. Do we have mode somewhere? Yes, we do. So we have exactly the same string here, because we had exactly the same problem in this situation. I remember having had that problem. So what we are saying here is we are downloading a file and we are putting the right permissions when we download the stub, which will be copied over when we copy the stub everywhere, but we want to make sure that the stub is executable. And that's good, but also here when we copy the file, we are copying the stub into the other place, and we could say mode that appears that when I copy file, I cannot set the mode. Okay, but that's just a double measure of, I think that copy will keep the mode. It was just a double security measure here, but doesn't hurt maybe. To fix this at a late point. How do I feel about this? Well, first of all, this is wrong. So this should be the path and this should be the mode, but the mode needs to be that. And this is a double measure because we are already downloading the thing the right way. And then in here, when we download artifact, when we download the artifact, for instance, here when we move, we should also change the mode. The problem in doing that is that I don't think chmod is a thing on Windows. So maybe we just download this stub and leave the wrong executable flag. So that's like a hack. We leave the wrong executable flag on the tests, but that's fine because we fix the mode of the compiled output. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this, but I do want to extract this into a variable that reads const stub path, or maybe just stub. Is there already a stub variable? No, so it's just stub, and it's that, and here we say stub, and here we say stub. So now it doesn't matter what your stub permissions are, we will produce an executable with the right permissions in the end. Okay, let's see everything that we have. So to test this, I don't want to necessarily have an automated test for this, but I do want to remove echo command line parameters and chmod stub to remove the executable flag. So stub is no longer executable. I can no longer say dot stub, permission denied. But if I run the command that compiles, we should have the binary produced with the right flags. So echo command line parameters should have the right flags. And appears that it does not. It does not. So this line is not doing what it's supposed to. What gives? Oh, I am doing that to the stub, not to the output. In fact, that probably fixed our stub. It did. So yeah, let's go over this again. Suppose that I don't have this line. I'll test the whole situation now. Suppose that I don't have echo command line parameters, and suppose that my stub has the wrong mode. Now I will compile, and the binary that is produced will have the wrong mode. So both the stub as well as the binary have the wrong mode. But now with the fix, I can, well, the stub is still still in the wrong mode, but when I compile, the stub will be in the wrong mode, but the compiled binary will be with the right mode. Yep. Alrighty, so I guess at this point I can chmod plus x stub, though it doesn't really matter. And let's review everything. So this executable I can remove. This was just for testing, I can remove. And then the post install, I will want to download with the right mode because it will keep things sane in your machine, but actually the fix is here. We have, oh, so now that I did this change, I can actually come back to that. So I copy the stub into the output and I chmod the output to have the right mode, and then I go on and do all the other things I used to do. So that is the actual fix. A single line, of course. So with that, let's build another one of these guys, push to origin master that, and I expect this to actually push to NPM. At this point, I'm fairly confident that this will push to NPM, but I'm always wrong, so we'll see. But we will not see tomorrow, because tomorrow we are switching gears. I have a guest who will be working on Reaper stuff with me. I don't know exactly what we are going to do. We are going to do some Reaper scripts in Lua probably, but I don't know exactly what the scripts will be. He has, my guest has all these ideas about some fun actions, some useful actions, things that have to do with Foley and recording lots of bits of audio and organizing scripts and whatnot. So I think that will be fun. But yeah, so IDDQD will be with us tomorrow. He is going to work with me on some Lua stuff, and it's always fun to have a guest. And I don't know if he's going to be with me on Friday. If he is going to be with me, then we will do some more Reaper stuff for the rest of the week. In any case, when he's no longer available, we'll come back to this and we will keep pushing. We have more things we want to do with this Kasha project. We still have some more things in the to-do list. I think that it's fair for us to come here to the to-do list and okay, I already removed everything that was done today. So we will look at the extraction bug that is not atomic, and we will customize the build some more with some more options for that. In any case, thank you all for watching. I hope you had fun. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and support me on PayPal and on Patreon. And yeah, that's it for today. I see you tomorrow, 5:30 UTC with IDDQD sound. For today, bye.